Did men and apes come from a common ancestor? According to the claims of the theory of evolution, men and modern apes have common ancestors. These creatures evolved in time, and some of them became the apes of today, while another group that followed another branch of evolution became the men of today. Evolutionists call the so-called first common ancestors of men and apes Australopithecus, which means South African ape. Australopithecus, nothing but an old ape species that has become extinct, has various types. Some of them are robust, while others are small and slight. Evolutionists classify the next stage of human evolution as Homo, that is, man. According to the evolutionist claim, the living beings in the Homo series are more developed than Australopithecus and not very much different from modern man. The modern man of our day, Homo sapiens, is said to have formed at the latest stage of the evolution of this species. The fact of the matter is that the beings called Australopithecus in this imaginary scenario, fabricated by evolutionists, really are apes that became extinct. And the beings in the Homo series are members of various human races that lived in the past and then disappeared. Evolutionists arranged various ape and human fossils in an order from the smallest to the biggest, in order to form a human evolution scheme. Research, however, has demonstrated that these fossils by no means imply an evolutionary process, and some of these alleged ancestors of man were real apes, whereas some of them were real humans. Now let us have a look at Australopithecus, which represents to evolutionists the first stage of the scheme of human evolution. Australopithecus, extinct apes. Evolutionists claim that Australopithecus are the most primitive ancestors of modern men. These are an old species with a head and skull structure similar to that of modern apes, yet with a smaller cranial capacity. According to the claims of evolutionists, these creatures have a very important feature that authenticates them as the ancestors of men bipedalism. The movements of apes and men are completely different. Human beings are the only living creatures that move freely about on 2 feet. Some other animals do have a limited ability to move in this way, but those that do have bent skeletons. According to evolutionists, these living beings called Australopithecus had the ability to walk in a bent rather than an upright posture like human beings. Even this limited bipedal stride was sufficient to encourage evolutionists to project onto these creatures that they were the ancestors of man. However, the first evidence refuting the allegations of evolutionists that Australopithecus were bipedal came from evolutionists themselves. Detailed studies made on Australopithecus fossils forced even evolutionists to admit that these looked too ape-like. Having conducted detailed anatomical research on Australopithecus fossils in the mid-1970s, Charles E. Oxnard likened the skeletal structure of Australopithecus to that of modern orangutans. An important part of today's conventional wisdom about human evolution is based on studies of teeth, jaws, and skull fragments of Australopithecine fossils. These all indicate that the close relation of the Australopithecine to the human lineage may not be true. All these fossils are different from gorillas, chimpanzees, and men. Studied as a group, the Australopithecine seems more like the orangutan. What really embarrassed evolutionists was the discovery that Australopithecus could not have walked on 2 feet and with a bent posture. It would have been physically very ineffective for Australopithecus, allegedly bipedal but with a bent stride, to move about in such a way because of the enormous energy demands it would have entailed. By means of computer simulations conducted in 1996, the English paleoanthropologist Robin Crompton also demonstrated that such a compound stride was impossible. Crompton reached the following conclusion: a living being can walk either upright or on all fours. A type of in-between stride cannot be sustained for long periods because of the extreme energy consumption. This means that Australopithecus could not have been both bipedal and have a bent walking posture. Probably the most important study demonstrating that Australopithecus could not have been bipedal came in 1994 from the research anatomist Fred Spoor and his team in the Department of Human Anatomy and Cellular Biology at the University of Liverpool, England. This group conducted studies on the bipedalism of fossilized living beings. Their research investigated the involuntary balance mechanism found in the cochlea of the ear, and the findings showed conclusively that Australopithecus could not have been bipedal. This precluded any claims that Australopithecus was human-like. The Homo series, real human beings. The next step in the imaginary human evolution is Homo, that is, the human series. These living beings are humans who are no different from modern men, yet who have some racial differences. Seeking to exaggerate these differences, evolutionists represent these people not as a race of modern man, but as a different species. However, as we will soon see, the people in the Homo series are nothing but ordinary human racial types. According to the fanciful scheme of evolutionists, the internal imaginary evolution of the Homo species is as follows. First, Homo erectus, then Homo sapiens, archaic and Neanderthal man, later Cro-Magnon man, and finally modern man. Despite the claims of evolutionists to the contrary, all the species we have enumerated above are nothing but genuine human beings. Let us first examine Homo erectus, who evolutionists refer to as the most primitive human species. The most striking evidence showing that Homo erectus is not a primitive species is the fossil of Turkana boy, one of the oldest Homo erectus remains. It is estimated that the fossil was of a 12-year-old boy who would have been 1.83 meters tall in his adolescence. The upright skeletal structure of the fossil is no different from that of modern man. Its tall and slender skeletal structure totally complies with that of the people living in tropical regions in our day. This fossil is one of the most important pieces of evidence that Homo erectus is simply another specimen of the modern human race. Evolutionist paleontologist Richard Leakey compares Homo erectus and modern man as follows. One would also see differences in the shape of the skull, in the degree of protrusion of the face, the robustness of the brows, and so on. These differences are probably no more pronounced than we see today between the separate geographical races of modern humans. Such biological variation arises when populations are geographically separated from each other for significant lengths of time. Leakey means to say that the difference between Homo erectus and us is no more than the difference between Negroes and Eskimos. The cranial features of Homo erectus resulted from their manner of feeding and genetic emigration, and from there not assimilating with other human races for a lengthy period. Another strong piece of evidence that Homo erectus is not a primitive species is that fossils of this species have been unearthed, aged 27,000 years and even 13,000 years. According to an article published in Time, which is not a scientific periodical but nevertheless had a sweeping effect on the world of science, Homo erectus fossils aged 27,000 years were found on the island of Java. In the Cow Swamp in Australia, some 13,000-year-old fossils were found that bore Homo sapiens Homo erectus characteristics. All these fossils demonstrate that Homo erectus continued living up to times very close to our day and were nothing but a human race that has since been buried in history. Archaic Homo sapiens and Neanderthal man. Archaic Homo sapiens is the immediate forerunner of contemporary man in the imaginary evolutionary scheme. In fact, evolutionists do not have much to say about these men, as there are only minor differences between them and modern men. Some researchers even state that representatives of this race are still living today and point to the Aborigines in Australia as an example. Like Homo sapiens, the Aborigines also have thick, protruding eyebrows, an inward inclined mandibular structure, and a slightly smaller cranial volume. Moreover, significant discoveries have been made hinting that such people lived in Hungary and in some villages in Italy until not very long ago. Evolutionists point to human fossils unearthed in the Neander Valley of Holland, which have been named Neanderthal man. Many contemporary researchers define Neanderthal man as a subspecies of modern man and call it Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. It is definite that this race lived together with modern humans at the same time and in the same areas. The findings testify that Neanderthals buried their dead, fashioned musical instruments, and had cultural affinities with the Homo sapiens living during the same period. Entirely modern skulls and skeletal structures of Neanderthal fossils are not open to any speculation. A prominent authority on the subject, Eric Trinkas from New Mexico University, writes, "Detailed comparisons of Neanderthal skeletal remains with those of modern humans have shown that there is nothing in Neanderthal anatomy that conclusively indicates locomotor, manipulative, intellectual, or linguistic abilities inferior to those of modern humans. In fact, Neanderthals even had some evolutionary advantages over modern men. The cranial capacity of Neanderthals was larger than that of the modern man, and they were more robust and muscular than we are. Trinkhaus adds, one of the most characteristic features of the Neanderthals is the exaggerated massiveness of their trunk and limb bones. All of the preserved bones suggest a strength seldom attained by modern humans. Furthermore, not only is this robustness present among the adult males, as one might expect, but it is also evident in the adult females, adolescents, and even children. To put it precisely, Neanderthals are a particular human race that assimilated with other races in time. All of these factors show that the scenario of human evolution fabricated by evolutionists is a figment of their imaginations, and that men have always been men and apes always apes.